Have you noticed how densely populated villages are? Houses are right next to each other. It seems a little bit odd since you are in the countryside and there seems to be enough space to build residential buildings separate from each other. Here you have an outlay of a village in Finland before land reformation. As you can see, most of the farmland was not in much use and everyone's living very close to each other. Apparently, everyone got along just fine, except the housewives who sometimes argued whose eggs were in the hen house. To understand the concept of villages, we must look back at ancient times. While cities were established by kings giving them trade rights, and sometimes these cities were in natural marketplaces before regions gave them rights, villages were naturally occurring habitats. Of course, some villages were established by a regent when frontier borders needed logistical support and manpower to expand the kingdom's sphere of influence, but most of villages rose around the clan system. Original natives belonged to the same tribe, but the village rose around the clan that was established with the first house of the village. I have talked already earlier how holy these houses were, and they were an integral part of ancestral worship. Before surnames, houses had names that identified its members. Usually there was a house that had a same name as the village, meaning that this is where the clan leader, the so-called elderman, originated from. But life is full of chance, and most of the times the houses were not the wealthiest and the largest homesteads by the turn of the 19th century. It is a fact that the village's lands were communally owned, meaning that the yield from these lands were shared among its working members. This so-called land communism persisted for a long time because in feudal era it gave a tax exemption to the land. Peasants were the only class paying tax for their land, so when it was communally owned, nobody had to pay taxes for it. By medieval era, family connections with its various landowners was not that clear anymore. But I do have to say that the court cases are full of arguments of this communal land's fair use. This communal ownership was disbanded by gradual land reforms that sometimes took over hundreds of years. They were designed to boost the agricultural output to keep the famines off. It was important for the crown to have farms that were capable to support the kingdom. This dense communal ownership is based on inefficient and low-yield agriculture. Farmland was supposed to be near the house to make simple logistics possible. The farms were based on human power, not animal power. Simple tasks like moving the maneuver, tools, and manpower further away from the houses was extremely troublesome for the peasants, even if the fields further away could give a better yield for the peasant. This inefficiency in agriculture was also apparent in the inheritance of the farmsteads, which resulted into splitting the land into smaller farms to provide all male descendants land. Therefore, the new houses rose right next to each other. The crown, of course, always tried to restrict this right to split the peasants' lands, since it was the king's land in theory. This ban to split the land among its population didn't increase productivity, but it did create a large class of people that didn't belong to the peasant caste anymore, since they were landless. A simple chance, are you the firstborn son or not? Nobles with their estate were the big disruptor to these villages when they established their own mansions that possessed the legal property rights. Peasants had at best family rights that meant very little as a serf to a noble lord. It was not until French Revolution peasants gained the property rights for their land. Peasants with their houses were a power unit of the kingdom that provided taxes and manpower. When their natural rights as free men were disturbed, the consequences could be seen even to this day with class societies. Most of European low-income brackets are direct descendants from the landless population that was created by restricting the right to split the land for inheritance. If you see these tight rows of houses in the countryside, you are witnessing an example of places where land reform was not mandated that much and the time stands still. And of course, there's the stereotype of villages being closed societies that don't accept outsiders that much. But you do have to ask, is this inbuilt in their genetics or their culture, since they are trying to protect their clan from outsiders, because that's how they mark their property. A lot of human traits are necessary for survival. Peasant must have very self-regulating traits in order to succeed. Well, that's just a thought, but think about it.